What's going on, people? What is going on? We've got Rob Michael and Dave Lawrence in the house talking about law. We're talking about common law, affidavits, using the law for our to our best ability, understanding what is the truth behind the law. It's going to be a good one, guys. It's going to be a good one. Stay tuned. We're bringing them on now. Here we go. No further ado. There's one. There we go.
Hey, same time. Perfect time of day.
Look at that.
Wow. Whoop.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah, you too, man. Both of you guys.
Here we are.
Awesome. Good to have you. I've been fascinated by you guys. Rob and I have done 2 lives together, 2 really good, long, deep dives. And Dave, you and I jumped on one, like a spontaneous one.
Right.
Whose was that?
That was Eno, Nomad.
That was with Eno. Okay, yeah. And then I talked to you two, and as I'm talking to Dave yesterday, I was sitting there saying, or a couple days ago, and I was like, man, we got to get you two together. And at the same time, I was thinking that you said, well, I want to reach out. I'm going to talk to Rob. I've got some things I want to ask him. I'm like, let's get on the line together.
Yeah, because Dave and I were trying to work on this like 2 weeks ago, and my schedule's been so crazy, man. So when you guys hit me up, I was like, oh, perfect. We'll just knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. Perfect timing.
Let's do it. So, guys, welcome. We've got Rob Michael and Dave Lawrence in the house. You can see their profiles. Click the top arrow up there where it says Law and the Truth, and you can see their profiles there. Follow them there. But guys, what we think is the law is not how it works.
Not at all.
Not even close from what I'm learning and hearing. And we're here to break this down. We're here to talk about how to use the law on our side as an opportunity to push back against what's happening out there in society. And even probably a better way to look at it is a way to exit society, exit the matrix, and a way to find new solutions and protect ourselves in areas where we might not even know we have protection. So there's my little intro.
Yes.
But I'd love you guys to go around and tell us a little bit about your background and kind of what brought you into this world and this inquiring and diving into this aspect of common law and other areas of law. And maybe just a quick, 5-minute overview. And Dave, you're the new guest to the show here, so why don't we start with you?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I jumped into this last year. Rob's been studying law for over 12 years. He's a little more advanced, I would say, in understanding the jurisdictions, the private, the public, and those are big, because a lot of what is happening right now is in the public, and people don't really know there's other jurisdictions that you can put yourself into, so you're not affected by all these mandates and ordinances and orders that are unlawful. But background on me is just I started studying law a couple years ago actually 3 or 4 years ago when we sent out affidavits to our city council for 5G, because they approved 5G small cells to go up in our neighborhoods. And so I was going to those city council meetings every week, and I was giving them all this information on 5G and how it's harmful, and fully disclosing this is harmful and we don't consent to this. And they went ahead and approved it anyways. And most city councils and municipalities have in our country, which is a really scary thing. If you can imagine having an antenna, a transmitter outside your window, So that I started getting into it 4 years ago. And then when this thing happened last year, I basically couldn't go into a store and shop and buy food for my family without wearing a medical device that I didn't consent to. And so then I really started saying, I said, hey, we have standing here to file some claims. And I really started studying what's called the private administrative process, which is creating a new contract. I know Rob is familiar with this process, and I really want to ask your opinions on a lot of this stuff. But it's basically securing a new contract with someone in the private by sending them affidavits, which is basically just your truth that you're willing to go to jail for if you're telling a lie. You're just putting your truth, the facts, the law down on paper, getting it notarized, having 2 witnesses. And then when they don't rebut those, an unrebutted affidavit is my understanding stands as truth and fact in commercial law and in the courts. So you're securing a new contract, and then courts are all about contracts, right? Contract disputes, breach of trust, breach of contract. And so if you have damage if you have standing as a damaged party and you have a contract with someone, it's my understanding that you can then file a civil action with them. But I know Rob has also talked to me about using insurance claims. So that's another thing I want to ask him about. So
wow,
it's just been a journey, and I have a buddy in town here I study with, and he's gotten his business switched over into a PMA, and so he could stay open during this time. And so he's been diving in. It's just really becoming autodidactic, just finding a topic and diving right in and learning, because we have to self-teach, because we're not going to be taught any of this stuff. Lack of knowledge is ultimately, what we're suffering from, so.
Yeah, that's a great intro. Thanks, David. And it's like, what I find fascinating is it's like when I first talked to, and I'm like, oh man, this is too much. There's so many new concepts here. But I realized, just like with anything, I mean, even like with crypto is a good example. Whether we like it or not, crypto is moving into our world, and I think we could use this to our advantage and also avoid the pitfalls of not understanding finance and whatever else. But I realized it's not like an overnight thing. This is a new evolution that's happening in society, or a new revolution potentially, that if we so choose to take this on and can. So, right. So I'm like, all right, I'm in. So I'm like, I got into a course in common law, and I just like taking it online. So I appreciate what you're saying here. It's like, you've been studying this for a year. When I talk to you, you sound like, a Jedi master. And then you're saying, but I've got all these questions for Rob, who is kind of like the Yoda of the right now. So
as long as I don't look like Yoda, I'll take that.
No,
baby Yoda, dude.
It's not a physical resemblance, just the powers.
No, man, you guys know, and I've said this plenty of times. I started this, 13 years ago because my parents lost their home to the housing bubble burst, and then I wanted to help, change things in society. And I saw that, wait a minute, you're not going to vote anything. You're not going to change anything that way. That's just two heads on the same snake. You're not, that's just keeping all the slaves occupied, is teaching them that they got to vote, right? And it's just like any corporation, do I want to be a shareholder in the corporation and vote? I don't even want to be in the corporation. Why am I, acting as a shareholder? So years ago in 2009, I was like, what, I'm done with this, man. And I started getting in some grassroots groups, which were doing a lot of this stuff then. Okay. And we formed the Republic, and we re-inhabited those seats, and we did a bunch of shit, and they came in and they shut it all down. Just like they always do. And then in 2013, I learned more about trusts and how the whole world functions on trust and how the Vatican's in control. And then we took the trustee position of St. Peter. And then that whole thing was just blew up in 2013. They came after me. They arrested me. They threw me in jail for something that I never did. I never got convicted. I beat it with a birth certificate. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm on to this now. So that's where I started. And, fast tracked to today. That's why I'm building out the House of Marcus Fellowship. My 24-year practicing lawyer best friend Jude is on board, and we're now building out our law courses so people can learn what lawyers learn, right? And also on the private side, what I've learned. So we have a really great mix of what we're doing there. But like Dave was saying, Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. I mean, this is what it's about. And there's a lot of people coming right now saying, help me. Give me a form to fill out. It's never going to work that way. You're not going to fill a form out and be free. You either, take the responsibility, shut the TV off, stop worrying about going to the restaurants and being social and start studying, or you're not going to have your rights. It's that simple. You can't have somebody give you a piece of paper and expect that that's going to save you and change your status and change everything and everything's good. You have to be able to speak it, live it, walk it, talk it. So that's what we're doing in the House of Marcus, is trying to help people understand what that looks like. How do we learn? What do we learn, right? Because everybody's like, where do I start? Like Dave said, you almost just have to dive in to something that piques your interest within it and go deep, right? So for me, if anybody is listening to this and they want to understand, you know, your best way to start this stuff, in my opinion, start looking at definitions. Grab yourself a legal document that's been handed to you and start reading the words. And any word that you come to that you think you know, but you can't explain yourself, like you can't describe it like that, look it up in the law dictionary because it has a different meaning. And this is really important because it helps give us the essence of what the subject matter is that we're trying to speak on, right? So if we're trying to speak out about something, especially to some legal authority, and we don't know anything about it, the best bet for us is to start with the definition. What does this thing actually mean in the legal dictionary, not in the regular dictionary, right? So that's how I start my research. I've done a lot of things, been a lot of places, done a lot of things that will make people's heads spin, you know, proved you don't need licenses. We don't need any of this stuff. And the jurisdiction of the state can't take over as long as it's private, like Dave was saying earlier, private, private, private. And right now, everyone's public. You have a public person, okay? They can't pull. Here's a thing, too, I think, for all the PMA fanatics and stuff right now. You really have to understand what a PMA actually is. It's a non-juristic entity, meaning it doesn't have a fictional life, so it can't be pulled into a courtroom to be sued. So if they're going to sue your PMA, the state is going to come after you individually. They're not going to come after the PMA because the PMA doesn't have a juristic body. It's the same thing with your living being. They can't come after your living being because it's alive and the system is dead. So they have to create a juristic entity made out of your likeness, an engraven image, which the Bible tells us not to do, and then they will pull that engraven image into court and make you think you're it. And then you start operating that thing in the courtroom, and now you're breaking the law because you have no authority to operate that juristic entity with your name on it because it's not you, it's a government agency, and you don't have a right to operate it. So this is where things get really, really tricky, but man, it's like, to me, of course, it's second nature, but I'm like, man, if people could just wrap their head around that one concept, it's not you, you're not your name, you were never your name, maybe for about 5 seconds until your footprints hit that paper. It's not your name. It's not your name. Get rid of it, right? Get rid of the government benefits, come out of the schools, come out of the colleges, come out of your employment, come out and start thinking, how am I going to work with my community to survive and create a life that I want to create that has nothing to do with the government benefits, right? Social Security, government benefit. Anybody with Social Security that's watching this, you are a government employee. That is a insurance benefit. You are a government employee. I don't care if you've never worked for the government in your life. Okay, these are major concepts that people need to understand.
Now, okay, obviously we're going to break a lot of stuff down, right? There's a lot of stuff I want to talk about. I'm really interested, and there's so much of this that we can go into, but one of the things that's really interesting to me is like how this is applying today. And I was talking to Dave the other day. We're talking about affidavits and even like insurance claims and possibilities to hand these affidavits over or submit them in regards to these mandates and have those reversed. So is this, how could, maybe we just jump into this and we'll come back to some of these other concepts later, but I'd love to just like start going into some of these things about how they apply today. Like, how can we use the understanding of some of these concepts to apply it to what's happening out there in the world?
Well, I would say it depends on each scenario. And first of all, like Robert said, is understand the definitions. So what is a mandate? Look up what Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, says of mandate. Mandate requires consent, agreement from the other party, from the mandatary. So if you don't consent to it, it's not applicable to you. So that's the first thing, is just people think that orders, ordinances, and mandates are laws, and they're not. They haven't gone through a legislative body. And that's the
key. That's the key. Yeah. Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
No, right. Yeah. And even if it has gone through a legislative body, if it conflicts with the Constitution, your state or your federal, you really want to lean on your state constitution, is my understanding, because our state is kind of like our country, the California Republic. That's where I'm from. I'm from the land. So the land is common law rights. There's no victim, there's no crime. Okay, now everything is working now commercially and administratively. And so first you have to understand that this doesn't apply to you. And if more people would just understand, no, mandate doesn't apply to me. I don't consent to it. It violates my medical freedom and my religious creed, so it doesn't apply to me. Yeah. If more people had that mindset, things might be a little bit different. So what you can do is you could put that down on an affidavit, and you can find a lot of templates online provide this, but put it down on an affidavit form, get it notarized, have 2 witnesses, autograph, and list all the laws and codes that protect your ability to deny that mandate. You know, like the Article 1, Section 1 of the California Constitution is we all have the right to be free and equal and all these other things that are just like the Declaration of Independence. So if you read your state constitutions and you read what, like Rob was saying, the definitions of these words, you can realize that these don't apply to you as men and women. And put that down on an affidavit form, and then you're giving the other party a chance to rebut that. So if I'm wrong here, let me know. If this does apply to me somehow, please let me know. You're putting the obligation on them to get back to you. So now you're the creditor. They owe you a response. You're the debtor. Everything is working commercially here. So everything is commercial and contract law, is my understanding. Mm-hmm. And if we can control that contract through affidavits by sending them affidavits, and they're not getting back to us because they don't have any laws, to quote, that says that does apply to you. And they can't say that it mandate, you know, what it does or does not mean. It's in Black's Law Dictionary right there, you know. So a lot of times you'll find that once you send an affidavit, you put your truth, your facts, your law, your evidence down on paper, you'll not get a response. And so that can be a contract that you can enforce for them being in breach of contract if they continue to violate your rights, deprive you of rights under the color of law, which is what is happening right now worldwide. Everyone is being deprived of rights under the color of law, not the real law, not natural law, not common law, color of law.
Yeah. So to expand on what Dave is saying, like,
Please.
let's keep it real simple. Go to Dun & Bradstreet, pull up your state name. Okay. The entire state is a municipal corporation. Now, if you understand law and you understand government, okay, a municipal corporation can only come out of a state. It can only be created out of a constitution where it is given police powers, okay? So a municipal corporation must be given police powers by the legislature of the state. So let me ask you this. If the whole state is a corporation, who legislated for this corporation to have the police powers? Where's the state? That's why all your states are called states of, because they had to come out of something. Right? It's not Alabama. It's not California. It's the state of Alabama, the state of California. Why? Because it had to come out of that state first. Right? So the real states don't exist anymore, or they're vacant. And that happened in 1860 at the Civil War when the South walked out and they ended the Union. Done. We haven't had a real government since. That's the first dictator we've had. We've had one ever since. So when you go online and you look and you find the Dun & Bradstreet profile report, it says, you know, the company has been in business how many years since its constitution? How much revenue is it making? How much sales does it have? How many subsidiary corporations are underneath this parent corporation? This is all for the state of California, the state of. So get back to mandates. Like Dave is saying, wait a minute, y'all need to clarify here. Where do I live? Who are you? Who are you? And in your affidavit and your notice, you're going to ask them, I need you to clarify. You have latent ambiguities in your entire structure here. So you're coming at me and I have no idea who you are. Are you a constitutional government with oaths of office, or are you a municipal corporation? Because if you're a municipal corporation, you can only police certain powers. And if you step outside those police powers and you injure me with a mandate or something, or forcing me to do something beyond my inalienable right, then you now have liened my rights unlawfully as a police corporation. That's called, or a policing authority, a municipal corporation. That's called ultra vires, meaning you've stepped outside your corporate charter. The state cannot do anything to you without a contract because they're a municipal corporation. So a municipal corporation can't go around doing whatever it wants to its citizens. It can to its citizens, but you're not a citizen of the municipal corporation. That's the key. You cannot be a citizen of a municipal corporation. You can be a citizen of California, but you can't. Right, but you can't be a citizen of a municipal corporation. And since I have their Dun & Bradstreet profile that says they're a municipal corporation, my question is always, hey guys, please clarify this so we can move forward to tell whether your laws actually apply to me or not. And I guarantee you, if you're able to write that, articulate that in such a way that makes sense, and like Dave said, you back it up with an affidavit, and then you say, hey, I'm not fighting with you. I'll get the jab. I'll put the mask on. Do whatever you want. As long as you provide these answers and certify them. Okay, certify means they have to swear under oath, just like Dave said, in an affidavit. You use the word certify when you want a response from them. Make sure whoever you're talking to, hey, certify your response, please. Because if you don't certify, you ain't got shit. And I just put all my stuff under penalty of perjury, and I've put my good faith and everything into this, and my own freedom on the line by going to jail if I perjure myself. So again, it's thinking how the whole structure works. You're dealing with a municipal corporation. You're not dealing with a constitutional government, which is why, like Dave said, when you rely on the Constitution, they're screwed. But what they're going to try to do is not apply that Constitution to you because your person doesn't have a right to the Constitution. Only you do. And you are not your person. So this is where it gets tricky.
Whoa.
But for people who are trying to speak to the government, start looking at their corporate model. That is where you have a total leg up, right? Because they're a municipal corporation. They only have certain powers within that municipal corporate structure. And if they step outside of that, you put them under what's called a notice of liability within your notice that your affidavit is attached to, which stands as evidence in your notice, right? It's just evidencing. So your notice may say some certain things, and it might say, see attachment A, which is your affidavit, ma'am. And then, like Dave said, you're going to put them under an agreement. Hey, if you continue to proceed without certifying the legislative acts, this is really important language, certifying the legislative acts that allow you authority over my private, right? Put that in italics, private property. If you don't certify the public law that applies to private property, then you will injure me if you continue and you agree to the following. This, that, the other, trespass on the case, criminal conversion, this, that, and the other. And you also agree to bind the state to yourself and the state to personal, criminal, civil liability, okay, in any court, in any jurisdiction that I choose. If you don't certify those things I need you to certify, I'll wait for that. Here, I'll give you, 7 days. You just get that back to me and everything's good. Oh, and by the way, if you don't certify, then you agree there's no controversy and I'm okay to not wear a mask wherever the fuck I want to go. Yeah. And believe me, you're, like Dave said, you're probably not going to get a response. Now, I've got responses back that say, you win, have a nice day, we don't want anything to do with you. So again, it's knowing who you are, knowing who they are, knowing how they're structured, and using basic tools like affidavits and notices to be able to articulate what it is you're trying to do here, right? And why these things don't apply to you.
Right. And what they're doing is they can't change the laws, right? We're dealing with people who control the money. So, totally. So they're moving commercially. And when you move commercially, there's ways of accepting contract offers. That's all these are, is contract offers.
Constant.
A mandate is, hey, we'd like you to do this. Yep. We kind of need your consent, though. If you don't consent to it, we have no way of making you do it, really. It's all just a bluff. So there's ways of accepting contract offers. There's honorable ways and there's dishonorable ways. So an honorable way to accept a contract is to conditionally accept, like Rob said. Hey, I'm happy to do what you'd like me to do. If you could show me the authority, the laws, and the statutes and the codes and everything that makes me have an obligation to follow those. And if you can't provide it, then we have no contract. We have no agreement. And there's dishonorable would be arguing, just no, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, not guilty.
Yeah. Or going
that's
silent.
Dishonor. Yep.
Yeah, so you don't want to go silent. You don't want to just, not get back to them, but you just want to put the liability. Again, goes back to being creditors and debtors. Do we want to be in creditor position or the debtor, the sinner, as the Bible refers? So you put it back on them. Yeah, I'm happy to do that for you. I'll wear a mask. Yeah, if you could just show me what law it states that a man has to do that. is required to participate in commerce in a public accommodation, I'm happy to do that. And if you can't, well, you know what, actually, and you proceed, then I'm gonna have standing and as being a damaged party because you're violating the law under you're taking away my rights under the color of law. And so we have to get into the mindset of going on the offensive and stop thinking about, can they do this? Can they do this to us? Oh my gosh, I got to email Rob. Oh my God, they can't do this. No. We go after them. You don't have the authority to do this. You are bound by the oath you swore to uphold and defend the Constitution if you are a public servant or corporation who is publicly in the public, registered with the Secretary of State. They're not a private membership association like House of Marcus. If you are a public accommodation and you have a Secretary of State filing, you have to follow the laws and codes and constitutions of that state. And if you don't, you're going to cause damage to one of the men or women on the land, and they have standing to sue you.
Right. So let's, if we could, and just embellish a little piece of that, because Dave touched on a good, really good subject there, or topic that, look, when you have a business, for those of you that are business owners, and you're registering with that business, and, you know, the attorneys there, they'll all teach you, oh, you got to have an SCorp, or you got to have a CCorp, or LLC is the best thing you can be. You know how many people I talk to that are single member LLCs? That is the worst thing you could ever be. You know why? Because it's a single member. Who do you think they're coming after? They're not. There's nobody else in the company. It's just you.
Oh, wow. So I'm fully liable?
Yeah, they're going to come after you. You're the only one in it, right? Attorneys don't tell you that. The best, so LLCs are great, and so are SCorps and CCorps when there's multiple owners, when there's multiple members of that, right? So that's why they come after you. Now, it all depends, right? What we're talking about coming after you for. It's all situational. Where, like in your situation, if it's just you and most of it is product movement, right? Then it's financial that they're going to try to come at you with, right? But again, it's registered with the state. They're going to try to come at you something financial. And the key for most people that own these types of organizations is the movement of the money and how you move the money. And that's kind of off subject of what we're here to talk about. But to Dave's point, when you start registering stuff, you're saying, yes, I'm going to give my property to you so you have some sort of authority over it. I need you to give me authority to operate. No. I already have the authority to operate. What I need you to do is step the hell out of my yard. Because I own my yard, you don't own my yard, and the public law doesn't apply to my private property. Where does the public law apply to my private property, right? And they'll say, well, we have the right to regulate the health and welfare of the public, and that's why it's going to be really hard, people, because they want you to be in that public. And as long as you're in that public, that's their jurisdiction. So there is a fine line there. And you got to be careful what you're doing in the public because you can't use the private thing if you're in the public. See? Now, does that give them the right to come in and tell you to wear a mask and all that stuff? No, it doesn't. Like Dave said, this whole thing, the mandate stuff is a crock. It's hilarious because a mandate's not a law. It was never legislated. You can't come in there and say, oh, this is for the public citizens. However, there's another layer to this I think we should touch on, which is war and emergency. All right? When they declare war and they declare emergency, all that shit goes out the window as far as Constitution because now you're under emergency. We get to do what we want. But again, where's your corporate authority to declare an emergency for the non-corporate people? You see what I mean? It always goes back to the corporate authority. Always, you're the corporation, we're not. I got the evidence right here. You can't deny it. It's right in your face, you know. That's how people can begin to protect themselves. Start questioning about, you know, wait a minute, who are you guys? Who the hell are you? Because what do they do to us? Who are you? We start, you know, here's my ID, here's it. I mean, you just sold yourself down the river in like a matter of seconds, man. You don't owe these people no information. There's no law that says you have to answer them in terms of in the street, right? There's no law that says you have to give them anything. There's only laws that say they have to give you their badge number, their name, their ID, their credentials, their records. That they have to give you that. They're public, right? you don't have to give them anything unless it's a quote unquote warrant, which is all screwed up too. They don't even do warrants correctly. So it's this rethinking of, what is your position in this whole thing? And if you want to know how to protect yourself from COVID mandates and all that stuff, you need to start retraining your brain as to how this thing is actually working.
Yeah. And here's another thing on that. I offer consults to help people with this, just kind of give them the knowledge and the strength to move, make an action, to send someone an affidavit, to know the laws. Mm-hmm. And a lot of these laws actually have been obfuscated. So it's hard for me to explain this. I'm losing my train of thought as well. So sorry, go ahead. Someone take it away.
Yeah.
It'll come back to you.
It'll come back. It just left for a second.
So what's okay. Yeah. And just jump in anytime, because I mean, there's a lot of train of thoughts going here. I mean, there's, it's interesting. It applies to you only under whether you're corporate or individual entities. Like this, there's so much to learn here. But what I'm curious about, are there people like yourselves who have this knowledge, who have submitted these affidavits or use some of these strategies to just do like a blanket, almost like when there's a civil suit, in essence, and be like, hey, entire state, you're full of BS. And on behalf of the people, we're submitting this, and, we're going to sue you if you continue doing what you're doing. So, I mean, is there some sort of action amongst the experts, in essence, that are doing this to combat the what's happening?
You could. My opinion on that is you can't really speak for anyone else, right? Because they're not going to let you do that. You're not an attorney, right? They need an attorney to speak for someone. Maybe people are. To me, I don't want anything to do with the system because you're never going to fix it. I mean, it's not there to be fixed, and it's not broken. It's actually functioning completely the way they designed it. It's not broken at all. System's fine. You just got to get out of it. That's the thing. But yes, to your point, what I think is great that people do and should do is pre-notify these people. Send them before you're going to the store, before you're driving without your license and all. You better notify the state and give them time to respond to you so you have a piece of evidence that they failed. You guys failed. You have a duty to clarify whether this is illegal or not. And I am now serving this to you, registered or certified mail. And you have so many days to tell me because I'm getting ready to go out and do this. And if you're aware of a crime and you don't say anything as an officer of the state, it's on you now. Pre-noticing is huge. Pre-notice. If people don't know how to write, people have no idea how to write anymore. This is a lot of the problem. Like, you need to take responsibility and start typing on your computer some notices and things like that because you're never going to get anywhere without it. Right?
Is the House of Marcus Fellowship, is that going to teach these types of things? Like, hey, let's learn how to write together. And Dave, do you also consult to help people with these types of projects as well?
Yeah. And I remember what I was going to say is during the consult, we were in this mindset of we have to claim an exemption, but an exemption, it signifies that applies to us. It never applied to us in the first place.
Right.
None of these mandates apply to us in the first place. So it's almost like a little trap when you do the religious exemptions. And I do help people with religious exemptions, but another way to go about it is to ask them why you are obligated to follow a mandate if you don't consent to it. That could be just a simple affidavit notice that you put them notice to clarify understanding of this of how this applies to me, something like that. You could ask them to clarify why you would even need to submit an exemption in the first place, because an exemption, it means, hey, we signed a contract, this applies to me, but I'm going to submit an exemption because there's some sort of condition that makes it so I have to change the contract.
Okay.
We don't have a contract to be subjected to medical advice from a corporate government, de facto government. So if we, again, shift our mindset, and I know that Rob could probably, and his team could probably formulate some really good documents to go on the offensive with what he was saying, is you send them notices first. Hey, I'm happy to do this mandate. If you could just show me what contract, where did we sign a contract saying that this mandate in medical advice from the government applies to us? Or when did we agree to that? Right.
Yeah.
And then so they can, if you can provide that back to me, I'm happy to then, clarify my position,
Yeah. So to answer your question too, Ben, about that, like Dave is helping people how to write affidavits and stuff like that. Well, on the House of Markets, you become a member. We're putting a bunch of just real simple lessons. Like, look, affidavits are so easy. It's the easiest thing you can write. So I break down on there, look, here's the 3 main pieces. You get a bunch of links where you can click on legal research and see how it's, done. I mean, it's really simple. And then I go through some examples. I walk through my own document and here's how I use it, in an affidavit and declaration. So yeah, I mean, I think that's really key. Like, we have to start teaching people these basic things, right? Because one of the questions is, where do I start? What do I do?
Right.
And you go to some of these websites and they're like promising you the Holy Land, just fill this out, become a UCC secured party creditor, get your account, get your millions, and it's like, no, dude, that's not the way this is supposed to work at all. No one is teaching me how to do anything. You guys are offering me a product that I fill out, send in, and I'm supposed to be good. That's the same problem we've had for 1,000 years, right? We don't need that anymore. We need people to actually educate us. So yeah, that is something that we're doing, is breaking it down.
Yeah, and one question I have on this is, Rob, I plan on filing multiple lawsuits against these corporations who claim to have jurisdiction and authority over telling me what to do with my body. I feel that I have standing as a damaged party because they had a duty to follow the law. They breached that duty, and that breach caused me damages because now I can't go shop. I don't have the same freedom. I have certain anxieties about even going into these stores, et cetera. But there's a lot of different people in the freedom movement who are preaching different things. There's a lot saying you want to just send out 1 or 2 rounds of affidavits, then you file a lawsuit right away. You file a 1983 lawsuit. But Rob, if I remember correctly, you had told me in the past, there's other ways to do that because you really don't even want to step foot in that court jurisdiction. You're essentially saying you have jurisdiction over this matter when it's kind of a private matter, and you could instead go after the bond of their insurance company, right? I mean, on a personal level, I'm coming in, absorbing a lot of different strategies, and like one is Alphonse Fagiolo, there's Randy Kelton, there's these guys who they really are preaching, you got to learn the jurisdictionary course, learn how to be your own lawyer, and then sue these guys, write a complaint, write a pleading, get a summons, and send it out. They have 20 days to get back to you. And so I'm studying to do that, but I'm curious what your thoughts are, Rob. Is that the way to go to get out of this mess and hold these public officials accountable and these corporate agents accountable? Is that the most effective way?
And Rob, real quick,
before
you answer, some people were having questions and stuff, and they said, one, yes, as long as we don't breach and say the V word and some of the other things, we'll be saving the live. But we can't promise, depending on which direction we go and how much. And then secondly, if you do have a question, please put it in the question little circle down at the bottom, opposed to in the feed, because it will go and we probably won't be able to get to it later. And third, if you want to see the profiles, some people asking who is here, whatever, just click the top arrow and then you can see everyone's profile. So Rob, hopefully I didn't breach your stream of thoughts, so go for it.
And one more thing, Rob, is another thing we're learning is to file state and federal criminal complaints before filing the lawsuit. So we really ding their insurance. So their insurance is like, hey, well, they might have a lawsuit coming. We got these complaints. So in my opinion, I want to do everything I can to make it so they want to settle. They want to come to that settlement table and say, listen, what do we got to make you to do? What do we got to do to make you go away? Right. And so I'm just trying to get the strategies down because the only way, in my opinion, we can get this to stop is put the financial liability on them. Yeah,
totally. So again, I can't really say that there's one method better than another, right? A lot of these guys out there, they poo-poo the whole straw man thing and all that. And you got to know what you're doing with that kind of stuff, the legal person. And you don't need all that. You just go to court and sue them. Well, yeah. And that's true too. But again, I've heard of the Barney Rubble writing and all. You don't have to be a good writer. Yes, you do. When you get into something this intricate, you better damn well be a good writer. And you better know how to write briefs. you better know how to write in the IRAC method, okay, which is issue, rule, application, conclusion. They don't teach you that in jurisdictionary at all. I know, because I haven't, and I've been through it 10 years ago, okay? When you write legal writing, just take a court case, look at it. They're explaining the issue, the rule, the application, and then the conclusion, whether it's in a paragraph, in 10 paragraphs, in a whole document. Okay, so if you're going to go fight these guys in court, then yes, you got to know your shit, and you have to follow the rules of court. You can forum shop. In other words, if you have an issue with the state, take it to the federal. Federal doesn't like the state. They're going to beat up on them, right? They're going to give you more leeway. If you got an issue with federal, take it to the state. They don't like the feds. They're going to give you more leeway. So yeah, those are really good methods. But I don't think there's any one better than another. I think it's where are you in what you're doing and what objectives are you trying to achieve. For us, we know dealing with our legal person that that's a huge, huge piece of what we use when we do have to go into a court situation. And we also know the court side so well that we can uphold ourselves there as well, or the public side, right? That's not somewhere I like to play in because to me, it's a waste of time. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to learn this stuff and you want to learn how these courts function, jurisdictionary is a great place to start. Just start looking and researching at the IRAC method, Dave. I mean, I know you'll get a lot out of that. Look up IRAC method. Everything you write to these people, you're dealing with judges and attorneys that have no clue half the time what you're talking about, right? And they're so used to receiving sovereign citizen paperwork, which is a hodgepodge of cases and affidavits, and they're like, what are you telling us, right? You gave us a hodgepodge of shit with some evidence, which is your affidavit, but we don't know what you're telling us. So they railroad you. Everybody goes, oh, they didn't listen. They just railroaded me. Well, they railroaded you because they have no idea what you're saying. If you don't have a clear, concise way of writing, which is taught in every law school, that in every legal writing, even business writings are written in that manner, they can't understand why should we give you this? Why? But you're not writing the application and conclusion half the time. You're just giving me the issue, and you may be giving me some rules, but I don't know what the hell you're trying to say. So again, yes, study, use the IRAC method. If you're going to do it, yes, there are ways where you can file criminal complaints and all that stuff. So for your situation, Dave, yeah, I would say you got a good thing going. You just have to make sure that you're communicating in an effective way. And we just did a lesson today, which will probably be up in another couple of days on the IRAC method. That's why I brought it up. I'm like, oh, this is perfect, because you have to learn how to communicate in a very intelligent way, in a way that the legal system understands. The legal system only understands ones and zeros. It doesn't understand twos, threes, and fours. So if you're not speaking to it in the way that it understands, because it's a dead system, it's not going to be able to afford you any relief because it doesn't know what you're doing, right? It's kind of like you're trying to program your computer putting twos and threes in, and it's like, hey, I don't understand that. I only understand ones and zeros. So yeah, so that's a big part of it. Again, getting back to the question, I don't think there's any one method better than the other. I can tell you that when we're doing stuff with our legal person, we do everything under state secrets. Okay. And if we have to get it into a court situation, it must be sealed because these are state secrets. So they can't be brought into public, and it has to be an in-camera hearing because you cannot hear this stuff in the public, or the judge or whomever's allowing it to be put into the public has now put the public peace in jeopardy, and now they're liable. So they won't do that.
In camera is the closed quarters of the judge that's private, right?
Yeah, but you're only going to get that for trade secrets and state secrets and things like that. You're not going to get it just because you request it. So, yes. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Trade secrets, state secrets. State secrets are the birth certificate, the financial scheme, the bonds, right? How they do that when you file. Because remember, it doesn't matter what court case you file. The minute you file it, they're creating an account. It's an intermediary account. They're going to start creating bonds and stuff off of that the court makes money, that the state makes money on. So it doesn't matter what the issue is. There's always a financial background to it. Okay, and so that's a whole other element that doesn't have to be argued or brought up. But I'm saying if you're savvy with that, you could go that route. I'm not saying you should do that or anybody should, you know what I mean, in your particular circumstance. You can still get remedy, but you got to know how the court rules work. You got to follow court rules. There's time limits where you have to submit evidence and all this stuff. Learn how to write in that IRAC method, and I guarantee you, man, you'll get a lot further.
And there's another thing called public health law. I understand, is that if you can look at your public health officers and read up on the public health laws, then you can look at ways that maybe they're violating that.
Oh, totally.
And you got to hold them to the fire of what they swore an oath to uphold and defend, which would be the constitutions and also their own public health laws. So,
remember, as a municipal corporation, they have the right to police the public health, safety, and welfare. Right? So think about that. Health, safety, and welfare. If they're a municipal corporation, if you attack them on that municipal corporation front, and you go, dude, you guys have done nothing but jeopardize the health, safety, and welfare. Oh, look, your statute says this. Well, here's evidence that you did the opposite. Let me explain the issue. Let's go over the rule. This is how it applies. And here's the conclusion. You guys screwed up, right? But nobody looks at them and goes after their corporate standing with a simple affidavit of a copy of their profile. You don't even have to get their credit report and pay $60 for it. You just do the profile and say, here you go, guys. Here's my evidence. You explain. You're a municipal corporation. You see what I mean? So that's a huge, huge part, man. Understanding the corporate structure. It's really, really huge for anybody trying to do anything with this stuff, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's exciting to me is like, okay, so once more people start to do this, and I think, Dave, you were giving me an example, and Chris, who I pinned, Chris, it says Chris 2112. Dave, when I was telling you, a friend of mine gave me a call and was talking to me about some of these topics and introduced me to David Jose, and which I haven't gone into his work, but I'm familiar with him. And, you know, it was exciting to like recognize what's going on here. And I'm thinking if more people can start to do some of these examples, like start to sue the companies, and I think David Jose was saying he was suing some of these businesses and they're getting charged $40,000 or something by violating these mandates or whatever it was. But the more that do this, the more of these stories come out, the more the businesses hear about it, they're gonna be like, hold on a second, you're telling me I could be in bigger trouble if I follow the mandates opposed to complying?
Great point.
I don't want any part of this. So hold on, I better look into this, or maybe I'll hedge my bet and be a little bit more lenient for people who push back, right? So I think these tools, and the more that people, you know, in reality, like, right, some people are going to dive deep into this and become experts, and others are going to just enjoy the conversation and never think about this again, right? So I think that the more people that we bring into this world and start to apply these principles, people start to wake up, and it can create that shift, or at least create some friction to get people to wake up and open their eyes a bit. So, I mean, are you hopeful? Like, this is like the part of the strategy is like, let's create some lawsuits. Let's submit hopefully the more affidavits and lawsuits that are submitted, the more friction, more impact we're going to make, and potentially slow things down or put an end to what's going on.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of lawsuits that are in the queue. I think the courts are delaying a lot of those lawsuits. But one method that I've been employing is bringing a legal notice of all the laws being broken if someone were to say, hey, man, you got to wear a mask. Mm-hmm. So I say, here's a legal notice of all the laws being broken by you doing that. And I really want you to understand that if you are going to continue to enforce your store policy and violate these laws, I can hold you accountable. I can sue you. So can you afford a lawsuit? You know, is that something you really want to dig into? And just educate them on, listen, you can have your store policy, but at the same time, you have to understand the laws, and people just don't understand those laws that protect their ability not to have to do that.
Now, is it safe to say that based on this being a mandate, not a law, that these are all going to get thrown out in court? I heard that like within New York, in New York City, apparently there was like 31 people that were written up citations for violating the policies, but their violation was only specifically they didn't have the sign in their front window, which they were required to do. They weren't fined because they went in and they questioned the people and they found out someone didn't have a card. It wasn't like that. It was all because they didn't have the form in the front window, which was the requirement. So, thoughts on that?
Rob?
Well, again, I mean, if you really want to know my whole thought on all of it is what is the universe trying to show us? What is it trying to show us? You guys have relied on these governments that are set up for your welfare, your health, and your safety, and they have failed you for 5,000 years, and you're still doing it. Right? When are you going to create something new, humanity? When are you going to realize that the creators of all this are few, and they're not allowing you to create the new world because you keep going under and asking for their authority to create something new, and they're never going to let you. So for me, my whole thing is I don't even want anything to do with all that.
Wow.
Not that it shouldn't be done or that it's bad. I think, like Dave said, if you go in, you have thousands of people start hammering them with lawsuits. Number one, what's that going to do to the whole legal system pipeline? It's going to clog it up, and the thing's going to be jammed. Just on that alone is a huge, a huge movement forward, right? But at the end of the day, for me, my whole thing is I'm creating new, and I'm creating new by saying whatever I've created is not even in your jurisdiction. And by the way, the shit that is in your jurisdiction, I've got a claim to. So don't try and take that from me either, because I've got the claim on it. You no longer have it. So that's where, my mindset is at the moment. But you guys got to remember, I've spent 13 years setting that up. It's not like I just started that yesterday. So for me, I'm like in a different zone of where I'm at and what I'm doing and trying to, help people come into this. So when we talk about a solution, so to speak, that's my answer for a solution. That's what I say. Like, look, we build new, we get out of the system, we promote this stuff, we help each other. Now people go, well, how do you do that without any money? Well, you've already got money. You've got plenty of money. You've got more money than you ever could imagine. You just don't know how to go and claim it. Right. And that's it. That's why I come in with the birth certificate. All right. And I've said this before. I got members that are discharging millions of dollars worth of debt with their birth certificate. Like that, done, gone. Mortgages, car loans. I mean, you name it, gone. Credit scores through the roof. Because your birth certificate is speaking of exemptions, that's your exemption certificate to the original contract that they put you under when you were born. So that title that you're holding, it's a certificate of title. Okay, is to the title to your wealth. But you don't look at it like that. You think you got to go out and make dollar bills and follow all this system shit. No. Everything is prepaid. So if everything is prepaid, what am I worried about mandates and shit for? Because I've got the title to the ownership of your entire system. I own the system. The system doesn't own me. I own the system. And I've got my certificate of title right here. You gave it to me. So you can't deny that I don't own the system. And they're having a real hard time with that right now because they're like, oh, yeah, what do you do then? You can't do anything. I've got the title, right? So I'm on a whole different level.
That's a really interesting way of looking at it, because a lot of people have the birth certificate as some sort of, bonded, something that bonds them to the system in a bad way. And again, it's all perspective. If we see all these mandates and everything coming against us, and we're always on the defensive, we're always in this state of anxiety. But if we flip it and like, no, but you have to follow this and you have to do this. So no, what authority do you have? And like Rob said, use that as a security interest of title, right? And to claim what is ours. So when he says the system is actually built perfectly, we just don't know how to use it. It's really resonates as truth to me. It's just a little confusing for me because you're hearing all these other freedom movement people saying like, birth certificate, straw man stuff, that's a bunch of garbage. You get in there, you file a lawsuit, you learn how to write a pleading and navigate that way. And I'm just kind of absorbing both, and I think you can do a little bit of both. And I think that Rob has seen the tangible evidence of the power of using the birth certificate, so that counts for something. So.
Totally. And you can't look, I'm not saying that any of these other guys are wrong or whatever, whatever they do. Right. But again, I look at it like this. Do I want to keep spending my hours and days and weeks filling out complaints, learning how to write like an attorney and do all this stuff? Or do I want to be, hey, I'm the owner, I've handled this, it's all done, there's nothing here to complain about. If the rest of the slaves want to continue to fight and be slaves, that's on them. But I am not one of them anymore. And that's what happened in my Kansas case when they pulled me over for speeding. I said, no, I'm not like the rest of your slaves out here, okay? They think you're pulling them over for speeding. I think you're pulling me over to rape my account. And that's what they're doing. That's why Kansas has a really hard time right now, because they're like, yeah, you're busted. you guys come at me trying to say I had some traffic infraction, and all you want is my social security number. All right. So that's a problem. I own that social security number is a government account that I have title to. So, yeah, it's a whole different way of looking at things, man. Look, if everybody took their birth certificate and claimed it's a title, guys. That's all it is. It's a title, right? Look at it, okay? And yes, it's a bond. It's a title to a bond. It's a title to an asset. It's the bond is the statutes and codes. It's all that. Look it up in, I think it's Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition statute. I think it says is a bond, right? That's the bond. When I come in with the title, and I claim that back and I become the superior now, I'm the owner. What happens, guys, at birth is you put this, you go in, you're born, they register you just like any corporation, okay? You have assumed property that's put on deposit. You leave it there. Read Abandoned Property Act, okay? It's uniform in every state, okay? Or sorry, Unclaimed Property Act. What happens is when you leave that property there, it's unclaimed. Now, when you go into a court situation, they don't know who you are, right? It's assumed that you might be the owner of that property, or maybe you're the holder, or maybe you are the owner. And if you look at the definitions in that act, it tells you an apparent owner is someone, well, we think you're an owner, but you're not really an owner. A holder is someone that can take that instrument, that certificate, and can use it as a holder because no owner has stepped up. But when you step up with the title and you go, wait a minute, affidavit, I'm the owner, holder in due course, you change the whole relationship between you and the dead system, okay? The dead system cannot work for you as a man or a woman. It's impossible. It can't. Now, it can injure you, and that's where some of these guys are getting really good at going into court and getting their injuries, right? They're getting their damages and stuff because it injured you as a man or a woman. But for me, I'm like, no, I want to take it out at the root. I'm going to yank that root weed right out, and I'm going to give this back to the registrar and say, hey, you got to clarify here. This is my certificate of title. So again, I just take things to a whole other level, and I'm in creation mode. And I've spent 13 years fighting the system to finally realize I don't have to fight it. I own it.
Wow.
So
right. That's powerful stuff.
yeah, it's a whole other level.
Well, and it's so refreshing. And I think they're one of the.
Can I cut you off 1 second,
Yeah,
Ben? Because I see somebody making a UCC comment here.
Yes.
So yes, there's a lot of uniform commercial code aspect to that. The problem with that for me, now, not that it doesn't work. The problem with that for me is, why am I going to go in and do some commercial process when I don't have to do that? It's all held in trust. So I hold that in trust, and it's much more powerful to use trust than UCC, in my opinion. But anyway, there's a lot of people out there just after the money grab and, oh, just do your UCC. And it's like, no, trust. This is all about trust.
Trust. What's the old saying? It's like spend 90% on the solution, 10% on the problem, right? And
right.
And I think we're looking at that in all different areas. Like when we had Rob Reiner on with the crop swap, that was one of you and him, for some reason, not for some reason, but for this reason, I think specifically, this is so solutions based. And it's like, we're always thinking, fight the system. How do we get them? How do we beat them? Fight, warrior, this whole energy of fighting, right? And this is step out solutions. This is something new. It's exiting the matrix, and that's what we're looking at. So I think this is great. I want to be conscious of the time as we go here. We got a bunch of questions already, and Chris, I know you asked a few questions before. If you put them into someone was calling it the crystal ball, the question bubble there. And you guys want to start taking some questions, or anything you guys want to cover or review before we jump into that?
Well, someone had asked about the grand jury, and that's one thing I've learned is that they kind of keep the grand juries a secret from us. The grand jury is someone that it's just your peers. It's someone you could put together, and if you have a case, you can get it to them. I think criminal complaints are involved with that a little bit. So I'm learning how to convene a grand jury. I would like to learn how to do that. And I'm kind of in the mode of what Robert's saying is I don't even want to deal with the fighting stuff and going to court and learning how to write all these things. I just know that as a man, you can't deny me participation in commerce and damage my property without getting held liable. So Yeah,
Can
go
I
ahead.
give you a suggestion on that?
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't necessarily call it a grand jury, but I would call it a jury, and I would say I've got a jury of my peers. And just like you've been doing, Dave, everybody writes an affidavit. Hey, we've reviewed these facts. We found this. We found that. There is no proof to the contrary. You get 3 or more people doing that, you got yourself a jury. And we used to do that back in like 2012, 2013. And the courts were shitting bricks, man, because it was like, the real people are here. I've got 12 witnesses here that just formed the law. Who are you, by the way? And where's your witnesses? So you could already do that, man. Absolutely, you could do that. Get people on the same page.
For example, if I were to get a group together and show them the public health records request that I have in my possession that sort of blows the lid off this whole thing, and if I get them to understand the knowledge behind that, what that really means, and then they write their own affidavit of truth, how could we convene a jury from there, and how could we hold these public officials accountable? Because they've essentially, in this records request, they've admitted something that damages their stance.
Well, you just said you already formed the jury. The fact that they wrote those affidavits, that's the jury. They're deliberating. They're looking at the evidence and they're going, wait a minute. You know, I think this guy Dave's right here. He's got, man, look, this law here and that one. And then, oh, the municipal corporation. And yeah, who does this really apply to? And yeah, okay, well, we, the people, a body of people, a non-juristic body, have formed together in an assembly. And we've said, this is what it really is. Now, we need you guys to put up your witnesses to clarify otherwise. That's your jury. Like, that's your jury. You don't need, there's no, you know. Now, if you try to go into forming a grand jury or something, they will come after you for trying to pretend to have authority like the state. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be a quote unquote grand jury. A jury is of your peers, right? In the common law, the peerage. So you just form it. You guys do your affidavits. You do your research. Bam, I've got 12 people here that agree to this. And then when you go into court with something like that, now you're cooking with gas because you've got testimony right there from 12 people or more. I mean, shit, get 20 people, get 100 people. You know, affidavits, if 100 people did affidavits of the same thing, man, that's some solid testimony. Because it's all testimony.
Right. File it onto the case and then maybe subpoena that onto the record somehow.
Yeah, I mean, you could submit it as evidence to whatever it is your claim is, right?
In discovery?
Yeah, discovery or whatever the case may be. You got to read the rules of evidence. You know the deal. Read the rules of evidence and go through court procedure. But yeah, I mean, dude, affidavits are powerful. They're testimony. You know, so why not get a group of the peers of the village, right, or the community, and they all say that they're non-public citizens, right? Americans, right? We're not U.S. citizens, married, all that stuff. Basic, plain statement of facts. And then down the line on what it is that they've all come together and agreed upon. There's your jury. This
is just planting seeds for everyone. This is planting seeds to think outside of the box because we the people really are the law.
Totally.
You know, natural law is about the people, really. It's about common law, you know, and if we can understand that we are the law, when we go into these places and we provide people notices that say, this is the law, we're going to enforce the law. We are essentially law enforcement, men and women. And it's just a mindset of going on the offensive, and not the offensive to harm someone. It's just to not let anyone, you know, deprive you of rights under the color of law.
You just reminded me of something, guys. Here's another good one. I was looking in the, I forget what state it was recently. It might have been Kansas or somebody's statutes. And I was like, oh, yeah, what about the citizen arrest? Remember that? The citizen arrest? I mean, really? They tell you right there that you can arrest someone for breaking the law. You can, literally. So, again, it's like, you know, come on. We got to use this stuff, man. We got to use this stuff. If it's in you to do that, if that's what you feel your purpose is to bring this to light, sure. But yeah.
Right.
So,
because there's
food for thought.
Right. Well, no, that's it. That's in my legal notice that I bring with, you know, and at the end of it, it says, if you continue to do this, I can, there's a statute in there that lists why I can do a citizen's arrest. I'm allowed to do that. Yeah. Because if you know, there's some that are saying, call the police, call 911 and have them, you know, you have a criminal complaint and you give that to the police, you ask them to give it to a magistrate. But a lot of the police are just policy enforcers, and they'll take the side of the corporation, and they won't do that. And so then you could go after them. It's just, we got to think outside the box, you know?
We got to become knowledgeable.
We're not powerless.
We're not. We're the most powerful. That's what they're trying to hold us down from. But if we don't like really understand the essence of this stuff, we're just, you know, we're running circles, man. We're just running circles. You know?
Yeah. Do you think there's value? It seems like, Rob, like you've been at this 13 years. You fought the system. You've been in major battles, you know, literally in the courtroom, you know, and you've gone through this. And now you have a clear vision. You're like, wait a second. I mean, because you're truly one of the top people that are really taking action and at the forefront of this movement. But do you see the value of others who are like trying to buy some time and trying to reverse some of these mandates so the current system that's in place can, you know, we don't turn into a totalitarian dictatorship? You know?
Oh, sure. I see value in all of it. And the way that I see the value, if you will, or the effort is that it's none of us. That's all God doing that, right? God's just doing everything. So and God being the ultimate consciousness, right? The consciousness energy and everything that's moving. So for me, I look at what everybody else is doing. And while it may not be my thing, I'm like, hey, that's awesome. You guys are, you know, holding it down. So, you know, it allows me to do my thing too. So even if we're not working together in a physically waking relationship, we're still synergistically all doing the same thing, right?
And raising more awareness to how this works, and that there's even a solution to it. I don't think, you know, until I met you guys, I had maybe heard these terms, natural law, common law, here and there, despite being in these circles of constantly investigating what's happening in the world and how it really works. It was still really not coming onto my radar much. And now, in the last 2 years, it's like, wait a second, this is really coming to light, which is exciting. So whether we're using the tools to go against the current system or to exit out of it, it seems like this is, you know, this is really great, gaining momentum, which is exciting.
Right, it is.
And people don't feel pressure to feel like you have to get this all figured out. You can just dive into a subject and just listen to it in the background when you're working. Just try to absorb some concepts, because obviously we haven't been taught any of this stuff. So we can't be impatient with ourselves. Just be patient, but learn to write a notice. You know, take a little time instead of watching Netflix. Just, you know, tonight I'm going to learn to write an affidavit. You know, go on to, there's Telegram chats that you can search in the file section. There's affidavits that people have already submitted and sent to people. And a lot of times when you write an affidavit or you put someone on notice, like we did with our city council for 5G, they tend to back off, you know, because they don't want to take liability. All these public servants and actors and agents are afraid of having liability. When you put them on notice, now they don't have any sort of immunity. You've told them, listen, we know that you're breaking the law and you got to stop. If you continue doing it, you're going to be held liable. And that's what we need people to understand, is we need people to be the enforcement of the law, because the policy enforcers are the corporate municipal officers. They're not going to come to your side and rescue you. You have to rescue yourself. The only way you rescue yourself is the hermetic principle of natural law is mentalism. You have to get the knowledge. You have to know the laws. You have to know who you are, and you have to stand in your courage and truth and go to these places and say, that's not the law. That doesn't have any jurisdiction over me. You know, can you provide it? You know, it goes back to conditional acceptance. I'm happy to do this if you could show me that this law is not valid, that the California Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, does not give me the ability to go shop in your store and get free and equal access. Can you show me that? If you can't, I'm going to have to hold you liable. It's just getting that mindset. That's all.
It is. It's hard, man, because, you know, who the hell wants to learn law? I never wanted to learn law, although I did find a great passion in it because I started to see, wow, I've got some power here. You know, when you start feeling that confidence and that power, man, I'm telling you, you start coming into your own more. It's like, you know, your spiritual goes along with your physical. You know, if you're talking about evolving and ascending and all of that stuff, Wait till you really start to have the gnosis of the knowledge, right? The Gnosticism, the gnosis, and you start knowing you're going to elevate even that much more. Oh, now I'm really powerful, you know? I mean, not egotistically speaking, but knowing that there is no one that's going to mow me down in what I'm doing, you know, regardless. Go ahead. Sorry, Ben. Were you going to say something?
No, not really. I mean, there's a lot going on in my mind, but I love it. You know, I like what you're saying. And I think from a spiritual standpoint is really what resonated with me when I was taking this online course, and they were talking about, you know, he or she, and you're saying the color or the persona or the personality. And the idea is my area is not law, but I did spend 10 years of going into non-duality, Advaita, Vedanta, spiritual seeking. And one of the first principles that you talk about is the idea of the self versus the ego. Right? And so the ego is the false sense of self. It's the personality. I'm whoever. I'm a fitness person. I'm a dad. And all these characters and roles that we play.
Titles,
yeah. And then there's that sense of really our essence of who we are. And in that sense of essence is free. It's free from the judgment. It doesn't try to cling to anything. It's basically this, it's like the soul in essence, right? So, and what you're saying about these principles in law actually really apply to this spiritual awakening. And I would say the irony or another parallel is when you get to this point of going past the ego, right? Or maybe in Christianity or something, for example, like you find God, or you have this connection where there's this sense of oneness or unity, there's this freedom. And when you get past your identities and the law, you get to your freedom, you know? So there's that direct parallel. And I just find it, I don't want to say coincidental because I don't think it is. I think the two systems work in such interesting alignment. So that's what I was thinking.
The whole system is built on that. Listen, let's do a little bit of history real quick. Rome never fell. Okay, what happened in Rome was they worshiped deities, right? The Greek and Roman deities they worshiped, you know, polytheism, many deities, and then all of a sudden, what was it? Right, not long after Jesus, right? All of a sudden, Constantine decided, oh, well, I'm going to go Christian now, and okay. Well-known pagan worshiper who's, you know, the emperor of Rome, one of the most notable emperors of Rome, all of a sudden turns around and says, I'm going to go Christian now. They have a little meeting. It's called the Nicene Council. They pull out all the books of the Bible that they don't want in there. Okay. They put all the books in there that they want in there. They create the narrative, no different than they do today. Same exact thing. They're just working with the media of the time, which was books. Okay. They created the law system. From that, they create this is the God system here that we want everybody to believe. Now, 200 years later, maybe another 100, I forget the difference between Constantine and Justinian. But then Justinian comes in and writes Corpus Juris Civilis, which is the same law system we're using today. Okay, built off of what was built from Constantine when he went to Christianity and they created the Bible. So everything, and the Bible, you know, being the books, at least the books that they included and even the books excluded, they're all perfectly in alignment with spirituality and stuff too. When you interpret them and stop listening to these idiots that call it a religion and interpret it for you, right? You read the Bible, man, that is a wealth of knowledge in there that is extremely important. But we've been brainwashed to believe that it's all about, you know, sacrificing and death and judgment and, you know, shame and guilt. That's all bullshit. That's not how the Bible's translated at all. So they took that and they built the entire structure. So what you were just saying a minute ago makes perfect sense. It's all built on spirituality. If you're going to run around and they tell you in the Bible, you're going to run around and believe this alter ego is your name, right? And you're going to buy into it. It's called a legal fiction. Look up the definition of legal fiction.
Okay.
Yep. Same thing as alter ego. Same thing as ego.
Yeah, right.
Same exact thing. Oh, we're going to believe that this thing has some sort of merit and, you know, substance in the world, but it doesn't even exist. Right? Same thing as your ego. I'm going to believe that I am this and that and this, and I have some significance in the world, but really I don't, because I'm just a traveling spirit that comes in and goes out. You know, so it's the same exact concept. It's no different.
I find it fascinating. Dave, if you have anything to add to that, great. Or we can move straight to maybe some questions. I know we were booking 90 minutes. We've been on 80.
Wow.
and we've got, I know it goes fast when we do this. Because, so, I don't know. I find this just like just drinking just pure wisdom and knowledge here. I'm loving it. And from a fire hose at times, too. I won't lie. I got my work cut out for me. But you explain it so well. It's just, these are such new concepts to me. And I love the dynamic between you two because you're coming from different perspectives and different years of experience and everything else. And you're both giving me really helpful tips about, yeah, okay, I just need to just like sit down and take a little time and read this or try practicing writing it out for myself. I never even thought I could even have the, begin to do that. I was just like, I can't do that. I need to sit down with someone and pay a consultant. But in reality, I think it's just about diving in and starting to figure it out.
Yeah. So you can look up definitions like Rob said. You can look at your state constitution, Bill of Rights. Okay. Mm-hmm. The state constitutions are they're very similar to the Declaration of Independence, at least the first 10 sections. And if you look at the Declaration of Independence, that's for private. It mentions private in there. So it's really like it's protecting the men and women, not the corporate entities, which is more of like statutes and everything else. When you get into like the statutes and codes, those don't really apply to men and women. They probably apply to your person.
Yeah,
so.
it's exactly right. They apply to your fiction.
Yeah. So even your fictions have protection, but you as the man or woman, you have the right to be private and those things just don't apply to you. And so again, it's just getting the mindset of putting the burden of proof on them to ask you how that applies to a man or a woman, not your legal person, not your fiction, you, the man or a woman, and that they won't be able to answer that. And then that's when the liability is officially on them, when they can't get back to you and provide what you're asking. And they're essentially the debtor. And for me, it's just how to enforce that, because I just feel like with the way our society is, if people are not held financially liable, they'll just continue railroading us.
Totally.
Wow.
No one likes to get hit in the wallet.
Yeah. Well, good point. So, all right, guys, we'll answer some questions. Maybe we'll do a bit of a speed round here to get through. I don't want to extend the time too much, but maybe we'll go a little bit over the. It's be 3:30 your time, so maybe we'll take about 3, 4, 5 questions. If you guys don't know who's who, and I'm sorry I didn't chime in, you could click the top arrow where it says Law and the Truth right there, and then you could see the profiles. You could follow these guys. Just someone said, "Beard man, you're cool." So that's Dave. and
trim it up.
Yes, and Rob is the non-beard man, and he's
can't grow one to save my life at 46 years old.
And Rob's the general executioner by his profile, and Dave is truth is the golden rule. So just so you know there. Okay, let's jump in. So how do you go about purchasing home or land outside of the system?
That's a tough one. You really can't purchase it outside the system as far as I'm able to see, but you can move it outside the system. Many people are doing land patents, although when we called about land patents most recently, they gave us a big runaround. They're going to try to give you the runaround and all that stuff to do the land patent. If there's a loan on it, you're not going to be able to do that because the bank's going to say, nope, sorry, we're not, we'll come foreclose on it. And the worst thing you could do is gamble with your home, man. My friends did that, my family, and they all wound up homeless. Oh no, We're going to beat it. We're going to win. And it's like, no, you're not. I'm telling you. And they didn't. But now we're at a point where like one of our members is like, dude, I just discharged my whole home with my birth certificate, $900,000 gone, but it's still on the tax rolls. So it doesn't matter that the loan is discharged. It's still on the tax rolls. So we're working on different ways of doing that too. We don't have it figured out yet, but I believe there's a way. Purchasing it, maybe do it up front the normal way, but then on the back end, I believe there's a way that we're going to be able to do that. We just haven't gotten there yet.
That's a great question, because I redeem my income in lawful money. And if you understand what a lawful money redemption looks like, it makes it really hard for you to get a future loan, because the banks only want to give loans to people that are endorsing the Federal Reserve. Mm-hmm. And lawful money redemption is non-endorsing the Federal Reserve. So I find myself in the predicament of needing to refinance, and I want to buy property maybe somewhere else. We're outgrowing this place, but the system wants their system to be compatible with, when you get in the private and redeeming lawful money and all this stuff, you're not. They can't make any money off you.
Mm. So a retired judge once told us all you need is a birth certificate and a business trust. You go in there, you put the birth certificate on deposit. Don't get crazy with it. Just tell them you want $1 million or $2 million, and you're good to go. And I couldn't wrap my head around that for years. I was like, how does that work? And we're starting to see how that works. So it's there. You have all the value. Everything in this country is prepaid. Everything.
Wow.
Everything's prepaid. The more you use those dollar bills, the more you run up the public debt that you're a slave to. Right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But the more you use your certificate and your exemption, the more you bring the public debt down. The bank doesn't want you to know this, because if we all did that, we would buy the government out of their debt, and then they would be subservient to us and not the bank. See, so the bank doesn't want anybody to know. So the government's under gag order. They can't tell you, but it's all there, right? Guys have been doing it for years in various ways. So I think we're going to see that really emerge over the next year or two to be such a solid thing, and people understanding how to actually do it. So anyway, yeah, hold tight, folks. Good things are coming.
I love it. I love it. Okay. A ton of people a ton of people having to pay back EDD unemployment insurance. How can we fight back or cancel repayment?
He who accepts the benefit also accepts the disadvantage. That's a maxim of law, know. And I'm not saying that to be cold or not sympathetic, but that's how contract law works. I mean, if you've accepted a benefit, then you accept the disadvantage that comes along with that. What were the terms and conditions? And again, if you live in fear and you go, oh my God, I don't have any money. I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to lose these things. I can't feed my children. Give me that money just so I can survive. They got you, because you bought into the fear rather than saying, nope, I trust in all that is. And I don't know how we're going to survive, but something's going to happen. And I can't tell you how many times in my life since I woke up that I've had to rely on that, and still do every day. I go, how's this going to get taken care of? I don't know. I don't have money. How's this? Bam. Things just drop in. Somebody comes in and offers me something that I didn't even expect. Things like that. So, it's that's a huge part of it, man. It's unfortunate. I don't know how people are going to work that one, honestly.
Yeah. People get really anxiety ridden and doubtful and fearful. And that's exactly the energy they want us in, because then we can be controlled easier. And the trick again is switching your mind and realizing that you're not powerless. You can go on the offensive if anyone is trying to deprive you of rights. But if you do take that contract and you do take those benefits and privileges, you have to, now you're in the contract, so that's a tough one.
Love it. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. How could I go to see my granddad? Okay. Maybe you guys can, this is probably something people are considering. How do I go see my granddad in hospital without having the V? Do you guys want to go there on that? I don't know if that's your territory or not, but if you have this perspective.
What do you think, Dave? Prior notice?
Yeah,
at least.
Prior notice. And one method you might want to do is, I posted this on my Telegram chat, is you write a notice of liability, and you write to wherever you're going, and it's basically a pre-scripted contract that if they violate the Civil Rights Act of 1964, because they are considered a public accommodation, and they're breaking this law, and this law, well, then you're going to hold them liable. And they will be held liable, the men or women who are enforcing it, not the corporation. They can't hide behind it. They will be held personally liable. So you can call and say, hey, listen, I'm going to send you this notice of liability, or I'll be bringing this. And if you don't let me in, you're going to be held personally liable for violating this law, and this law. So govern yourselves accordingly. and you can't say I didn't give you prior notice, and then you would have to find a way to prove that you gave them the notice. So you might want to consider, emailing is fine, or sending certified mail, return receipt, maybe a couple days before you go. Sounds like a lot of steps, but at least you have peace of mind going down there that you put them on notice, you're acting honorably.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, just to add to Dave's notice thing, what I do is I always put in, so when I send a notice, it's like a series of notices, right? It's a couple paragraphs at each notice. Notice of liability, things like that. One of the notices I put in there is notice to tender to your insurance and attorneys. So, and what that paragraph says is, if you don't understand what these laws say, you better get this to somebody that does. Because if you don't, I'm holding you, like Dave said, personally liable now. So what you're doing is you're putting them on notice that says, if you don't understand what this says, you have a duty to get this to your insurance carrier and your attorney. Because when you come, if you come back on that to sue them, their bond company, their insurance company is not going to be happy about that, because the insurance company is going to be the one that has to pay out on it. And they were notified, they should have been notified that this transaction was taking place. So anyway, it's just the added
Love it.
to put in your notice.
Wow. Yeah, I'm glad we brought that one up. I wasn't even thinking you'd be going that route. Do we need a sole proprietorship to set up a business trust?
No, you don't need any organization to set up a business trust. A business trust is an entity into itself. I mean, it's private, and it does business. There are certain elements. I've seen some really bad business trusts out there, but the business trust does not have to be registered, and it can do business in anything.
Corporation sole is what I hear is pretty good to get.
Well, you could do that, but the corporation soles are also under statute where they're regulated, right? So if you're going to do like a 508c1a church, that's a church, right? So you got to be careful. Am I doing business with it? What am I doing with it? Is it? And that's fine as long as it's nonprofit. Well, I think all of us realize at this point in the game that nonprofits are the most profitable businesses out there.
Yes.
Nonprofit just simply means you're not taking the money. I don't even have a personal bank account. Nothing gets in my personal name. So I never profit because I don't have a bank account. So nothing ever goes in my name. Everything goes trust, and they're all helping each other manage everything, and there's no profit.
Wait a second. So Bill and Melinda Gates aren't they're
Oh boy, you better believe they got a web of trusts and nonprofits, man, like you would not believe.
Oh,
and
God.
That's how they do it. So we just do as when in Rome, do as the Romans.
Oh, it's funny. Someone just said, "Can we arrest Fauci and Gates?" That was a question.
Citizens arrest.
Is there a way to use the legal system against? I mean, that's a pretty legitimate question because, I mean, you could really look back at the laws they violated, I mean, on a mass scale, right? I mean, wouldn't that hold up to some degree?
If you know how to press the lawsuit.
Yeah.
And Dave will tell you, I mean, there's no attorney out there going to do that.
Right. They're all part of the bar. They're all part of the bar.
Part of the bar.
They're all the same team.
The law encyclopedia, Corpus Juris Secundum, says allegiance is to the state, second is to the court, and third is to the client. So you're third in line when you hire an attorney. You're not going to get to be first. Can't. It's impossible.
There's like Thomas Renz out there who's actually fighting for the people. So there's some people breaking out of the system. Are you surprised there's not more who are just naturally, on Team Humanity that just really want to go out there and say, hey, we've got the power. Yeah.
So people need to understand there's various layers of controlled opposition. There's a lot of doctors coming out. There's a lot of this guy coming out. Seems really official. They're giving you the 80-20 or the 90-10 shill method, which is they give you 80% truth, 10% lies, or 80-20, sorry.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh, well, this guy said this is true, but it's really keeping a false narrative alive. And so people need to be really vigilant and hold discernment for, I don't care who's coming out with information. If you can't verify it, if it's sounds a little fishy, you just have to be really, you know, so there's a lot of people coming out who I don't trust because they're going against things that I can prove are not true, but they're giving you a lot of other stuff that sounds good. A lot of other
prophets.
truth. Right.
False prophets are everywhere right now.
Everywhere. Yep.
I might lose you guys though. My low power mode just went on, and I don't have.
Yeah,
mine too.
Well, you know, somebody was just talking to. Maybe we'll make this kind of like a go around. Just we're over our time here a little bit, and I want to respect you guys. I know you both got a lot going on. So you know, someone was talking about it's hard to stay positive right now. You know, and curious. Well, before I ask my last question. To follow these guys, I just want to say one more time, guys, you can go up to the top arrow on the top left, click down, you can see their profiles and follow it. You know, you can follow up with them directly and check out their sites and their work that they're doing. They're doing some amazing stuff. But coming back to the final question is, you know, positivity and hope and, you know, what's your outlook on what's going on with all this stuff right now and any like words of hope for people who are listening?
Absolutely, man. The whole shit and system's going to come down. I can't wait. And it's going to look ugly as hell for everybody that's afraid and in fear and is attached to their things and is attached to, you know, death and dying. It's all going to, they're going to live the worst hell you've ever seen. And the rest of us, we're going to be creating, having a good time, dancing in community, creating organizations and being together, and we're off and running into a whole other world.
Yeah,
and it is happening, like literally right in front of my eyes. I could see it happening. I'm like, holy shit. Yeah. So
I think we bring the system down from the bottom up. I don't think we're going to bring it down from the top, going down to the bottom. It has to be everyone in our various communities taking certain actions, whether against just making certain stands against this stuff, whether it's just not wearing a mask, whether it's writing a notice or an affidavit to a public health officer or whatever. It's just each person starting to hold these criminals accountable, standing in your truth, knowing who you are, knowing the laws that protect those inalienable rights, and just taking a stand, one person at a time, having courage, studying up a little bit instead of all these distractions. They're throwing all these distractions at us and all these controlled opposition agents that make you want to just watch their videos over and over. Oh, this guy's speaking the truth, but they're leading you down another road that they want you to go on. It's just, sometimes you just have to self-study, take little actions in your community that you don't, and make it known that you don't consent to this stuff. So it does not apply to you. Only mandates apply to people who consent to it. I don't consent to it. That's all you can. That's one thing you can do. Just, I don't consent. No.
We could end the charade overnight in terms of the crisis if we all just stood up and said no tomorrow.
Right.
Yep.
That's it. That's all it takes. No,
work.
I'm not gonna. No one starts paying attention. No. You get everybody to walk into the store without wearing one. And it's like, all right, you know what happens.
Or conditionally accept. Or conditionally accept. Instead of saying no, say, yeah, I'll do it. Just show me the law, show me the authority and the jurisdiction.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm happy to do it.
Exactly, and just show me the proof that it's required and
prove your claim.
Prove your claim. I love it. Well, guys, this is awesome. I mean, I tell you, I can see why we had such consistent engagement throughout the whole thing. Great freaking questions, guys. I wish we had time to get to more of them, but there was a lot of questions. I mean, in there.
Oh, I'm sure, man. We should just do a Q&A.
Yeah, you know, next time let's just do a Q&A.
Yeah, that's what some of my interviewers have done. Like they had one with me, and then like we did another one just Q&A because there were so many questions coming in.
All right, we'll come back next time. Let's do like maybe like even next week or something. You just want to take a break, do a Q&A, you just go straight into it.
Yeah, fine with me.
Yeah, save this one. I think a lot of people have been saying to please save this.
Yeah,
video.
Sorry guys, we'll save it. I think we're good. We didn't say some of the bad words. As long as they don't analyze the content, we're good. Guys,
well, real quick.
Yeah.
I got to get going too. I just want everybody to know we're doing a seminar out in the White Mountains on March 19th and 20th in Arizona.
Go to it. They're awesome.
It's going to be badass. We're setting up music and dinner and stuff like that for everybody. And out in the White Mountains it's in the Sholo area, SHOW, second word LOW. And we'll be putting that out here shortly. We don't have any of the advertisement out yet, but March 19th and 20th. So House of Marcus will be putting on a private seminar for private people.
And if you don't know, that's Rob. He's a general executioner. Just to differentiate between the two, but make sure you follow both. It's great content. And Dave's got Orgonite. He also does consultations and just really interesting stuff going on his page too. Make sure to check that out as well. And,
thanks, Ben.
Yeah,
appreciate you, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys so much for coming on. Honestly, this is just, I look forward to it every time. And we'll coordinate and we'll schedule another one coming up soon.
Sounds good.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Love you both. You guys are freaking awesome.
Can't
wait to see you again soon.
Lots of love.
Love it. Bye.
See you guys.